Welcome to TNC Preparation School Book Lectures. I'm going to start the lecture with a small story. It is one of my favorite story. You all have seen the chessboard and their coins, or play, or maybe a chess players also. In the chessboard, we can see many coins like king, queen, knight, bishop, pawn. Um, there is a special feature on the pawn. Let me say from the start of the game to the end of the game, king remains a king, queen remains a queen, bishop remains a bishop. They won't change their status, they won't change their state, but the pawn, uh, if the pawn thinks uh, want to change their position, they can change. Like if we cross the 6 steps in the chessboard, if the pawn crosses the 6 steps in the chessboard, he can change into a queen, or he can change into a bishop, or he can change into a rook. So we may born as a pawn. We may born as a pawn in a family without the support. But we can change our lives if we cross the 6 steps in our life. So with that story, I'm gonna start the lecture. Uh, so first, we are going to see the previous year questions of in this lesson. So we can know the importance of the lesson. Um, so the first question, which was asked in Group for 2018, is find the name of the ruler who gave Pondicherry to French. The options are Falul Khan Lodi, Abraham Lodi, Sher Khan Lodi, Iltutmish. And the second question, this question was asked in Group 2A interview post question paper, which was conducted in 2018 only. The Portuguese sailor who reached Calicut in 1498 was. The options are D. Almeida, Vasco da Gama, Robert Clive, Albuquerque. This question might probably known for many. You can get. Can you guess the source of the question? So the source is it is in the 11th standard new book. Um, the chapter is lesson 16, the coming of the Europeans. What is the syllabus it linked to is advent of the European invasion. Um, this chapter is a very big chapter, so we are going to see the chapter in two parts, part one and part two. The part one will cover uh, till Danish in Tamil Nadu, till Danish in Tamil Nadu. After that, the French and the British we are going to see in second part. The first part we're going to see in Portuguese and the Danish. Um, so the introduction is why Europeans came to India. So Europeans initially came for the spices, especially this pepper, cinnamon, cloves. Um, because there was a demand in the European markets for these products, and so they came only for the bilateral exchange. The first European who came to India was Portuguese. Portuguese discovered the sea route via Cape of Good Hope around 15th century. Who was the traveler who discovered the route is Vasco da Gama. And then the Portuguese annexed the Goa. They made they made Goa as headquarters. Goa as a political headquarters, and they also traveled to east, the Malacca and Java. They also annexed these territories for their especially for their spice. So what are the lesson we are going to see is um, the arrival of the trading companies. What are the trading companies? Portuguese, Dutch, Danish, and French, English, and their political history, how they annexed the territories, how they changed the history of India after 1600. Initially, we are going to see how the political affairs was there before while the Europeans coming to India. We are going to see in this period of 50 years, like 600 to 1650, 1650 to 700, like that. So the first 600 to 600 to 1650, the Mughal Empire. So in during this period, Mughal Empire reached their peak, reached their zenith. Like even the European travelers who visited the visited during this period talked about the wealth of India and the wealth of the Mughals. The famous ruler Akbar. The famous ruler of Mughals, Akbar, extended the empire through Rajasthan and Gujarat in 1573. So this led to the access to the Surat to the Mughal emperor. Why Surat was important? Because of the importance Surat had. They had two governors. One is governor of city and the other is governor of castle. What the governor of city will do? Um, uh, um, he can maintain the civilian affairs and collecting the revenues, and the governor of castle will build governor of sorry sorry Surat had two governors. One is for civilian affairs and the other for collecting revenues. um, and um, and they also had a castle um, like it was similar to a fort. It was built on river Tapti to protect the city. You can see the British factory at Surat. You can see the image here. And then we saw the political situation in 1600, and we are going to see we already see the Portuguese arrived by Vasco da Gama, and the next is Dutch arrived in Surat. The Mughal governors gave permission to set up the factories. The factories is the term factory doesn't mean they manufacture something in this region. It is called a warehouse, like storing of products they brought from across the regions. And from the warehouses, from the factories, they call warehouses. From the factories, they send the products to the European markets. The Dutch were not allowed to ter- territorial annexation, or not allowed to territorial authorities. Um, so this triggered the anger in the Dutch, because the Portuguese were allowed territorial authority, but the Dutch were not allowed. And also Akbar followed a revenue system which was revamped by Todarmal. It is called the unified system of governance and the revenue collection. um, then there came then came English. English acquired the Bombay in 1668 and made it as a headquarter in 1687. Due to the uncertainties prevailed in the Surat, English tried to make Bombay as an alternative destination for Surat. So after previously also we saw 1600 to 1650 how the Mughal Empire. So Mughal Empire was in North India. How was the Southern India? Um, the Southern India was ruled by Vijayanagar, but during this region, Vijayanagar was defeated. Like Vijayanagar went to decline. Like three Nayak kingdoms were there: Madurai, Tanjavur, and Senji. These three kingdoms were there, and their objective was to provide financial and manpower resources to the empire. When the Vijayanagar Empire defeated at 1565 in the Battle of Talikota with the combined forces of Ahmednagar, Bijapur, and Golconda, um, the central autonomy, the central kingdom, the central authority declined. So the uh, small emperors or small chiefs uh, announced their independence. They became autonomous. Like the the most important, the local chief was Setupati of Ramanathapuram, and the Dutch and the English began acquiring the territories. Like the Dutch acquired Pulicat from Nayak of Senji. You can see Senji here. It was also one of the part of Vijayanagar. So from Senji, Dutch acquired the Pulicat. Um, they constructed a fort there. You can see the remains of the fort even now in the Pulicat. And also English. English people um, bought the land from Damarla Venkatagiri Nayak and built a St. George Fort in 1639. You can see the picture of St. George Fort here, and also the invasions at Golconda at Coromandel in 1646 helped to acquire the area between Pulicat and Santom. So they made a base at Coromandel to exchange the products with Indonesia. And then the second period of the 16th century, it is 1650 to 1700. During this period, Aurangzeb ruled India. He thought of extending the empire south to the Deccan, so he conquered Ahmednagar, Golconda, Bijapur in 1680. This aim of overextension led to the weak of the central authority, especially when there was a struggle with the Marathas. So the Marathas attacked the Surat in 1664. Initially, it was abandoned, and the second raid was made successful. After the successful attack of Surat, the uh, Marathas turned their attention to southern India and defeated the Nayaks of Senji and Tanjavur. Um, Senju and Tanjavur, they made the cultural capital as Tanjavur. And the next century started, the 1700 to 1750. We know the death of Aurangzeb in 1707. So the death of Aurangzeb led to the successor states like Oudh, Bengal, Carnatic and Hyderabad. So this Bengal and Carnatic, these two regions, the Nawabs borrowed heavily from the British. So in return for that, the Nawab assigned the land to collect the revenues. So this started the era of Britishers as revenue collectors. And then the Dutch people, we previously saw, they bought Pulicat from the local chief and built the fort there. Uh, they gradually extended their territory to Nagapattinam, and then made the capital of Indonesia, Jakarta, as their capital for their and they hold the territory for the spice. You can see the Nagapattinam in 1702. This picture talks about Nagapattinam in 1702, and Bombay became the alternative for merchants because of the uncertain political condition in Surat. And also in Surat, the local merchants. Because of the uncertainty and because of the threat, uh, asked the help from the Dutch and English to protect them. How was the economy during those 150 years, 1600 to 1750? Um, Agriculture was a prime agriculture was a prime business. Um, what are the products they cultivated, like especially food grains for Tamil Nadu were imported from Andhra and Bengal, and food for Malabar coast were imported from Gujarat in return for the spice from the Malabar. These food grains were also even shipped to Dutch settlements in Sri Lanka and Batavia. Uh, Other than the food grains, the commercial crops like sugarcane, oil seeds, cotton, indigo also cultivated. Um, they've also trade in food grains, ghee, jaggery. The next is cotton manufacturers. Uh, as we can see, the agriculture is the prime. The second most important business for Indians during that period is weaving. Uh, you can see the handicraft production both in rural and urban areas, but some luxurious work like metal works is in urban area and weaving is in rural area. And Indians also have a special knowledge about dyeing. Um, they dyed the textiles using the chemical called alum, which it is used to make a permanent color. And also in the Coromandel coast, the Kalamkari textile were very famous. And in marketing, when the products were uh, produced more than the subsistence need, like subsistence is like um, for example, if a family of four produced for their own family, it is called subsistence. When the supply exceeded the subsistence, we need to search for the markets to sell those products. So when this stage reached, there was extensive trade networks from village to region and the larger urban areas. And then merchant groups, um, you can put a pyramid, in the pyramid, the bottom of the pyramid with small traders and retailers, and the middle is brokers and sub brokers, and the top is great merchants. And you can see the banking sector rising over there, because people need money. So they gave to shrefs or money changers with the coins what they have, and they tested the purity of the coins, and they gave the bills of exchange like a check. This check bills of exchange called hundis were exchanged at wherever the money they needed. So what are the merchants available during that region was called? In Surat you can see Baniyas and Paris, and in Ahmedabad Nagar sets, and in Bengal Jagat sets. Overseas trade like Malacca and the products from Malacca and China, the products were unloaded in Indian ports, and these products were then loaded to reach the Central Asian markets. So the Indian ports are used as intermediate ports. Intermediate ports are also called enterports. What are the ports? Pulicat, Masulipatnam, and Pulicat and Masulipatam. These acts for intermediate ports for Malacca, and for the other intermediate ports like the Pulicat and Masulipatam act as intermediate ports for Burma and Malay Peninsula. Okay, now we are gonna see the Europeans, who are the Europeans arrived and their aftermath. So initially the Portuguese, the first. Okay, sorry for the inconvenience caused. The first Europeans who arrived is Vasco da Gama. Uh, Vasco da Gama in Calicut. In Calicut, he was received by King Zamrin. He came in three vessels in 1498. The next European who came is Pedro Alvarez Cabral. He came with 1,200 men in 13 vessels. The second visit, again made by Vasco da Gama in 1502, he arrived in Calicut with 20 vessels, and then he moved to Cochin. In order to break the monopolistic trade of Arabs, he used the enmity between the Calicut and the Cochin. Um, then the Portuguese stopped the early expeditions to India, and he made he uh, they put first Viceroy Francisco de Almeida. The policy he followed is blue water policy. Blue water policy is like they added more ships to strengthen their position. They destroyed the Zamran fleet and Egypt Sultan fleet. You can see the King Zamran picture over here, and also he befriended with the Cochin ruler and built a fort at Kochi, Kannanur, and Malabar. Next, we are going to see how the Portuguese consolidated their territories. After after Francisco de Almeida, the next viceroy is Albuquerque. Albuquerque, you can see the picture of Albuquerque here. Albuquerque is a real founder. He defeated Yusuf Adil Khan. Yusuf Adil Khan. He was a Bijapur ruler at 1510. Because of this defeat, the Albuquerque captured Goa. Um, Albuquerque also favored like Europeans to marry Indian women. This led to the new race called Eurasian. Albuquerque also attempted to stop Sati. Uh, he conquered the Malaccan coast. This led to the trade with the Malaccan territory, and he attacked Arabs and took Aden. In 1515, he took Armos. Armos, Aden, Malaccan conquest. He attempted to stop Sati. And the other two European travelers is Kunka and D. Noronha. Ninoda Kunha occupied the Bazaine in 1534, and he occupied Diu in 1537, and the other is D. Noranho. During his reign, Akbar visited Cambay and Gujarat, and the first contact between the Mughal and the Portuguese established. You can see the picture over here. The Akbar contacted with European traders. After that, the King of Spain was Philip II defeated the Portuguese and the European in the Europe at 1580. The Dutch people in India defeated the Portuguese at Ceylon and seized the fort at Malabar. So this led to the decline of the Portuguese. What is the impact the Portuguese made in India is uh, this people is the first people to conquer the territories. Uh, they divided the rulers in order to gain access to territories. They adopted gunpowder and superior artillery. They contained the monopolistic trade of Arabs, but this helped the British to help the sea voyage safe. Because of accepting the marriage between the Indians and the Europeans, a new race of Eurasian emerged, and you can see the Portuguese presence even now in Santom and Mylapore, Blacktown, in the British presence in George. And after the settlements, there was a missionaries, Jesuit missionaries from the Europeans, especially the people called Robert. You can see the picture of Robert D. Nobili. He wrote in both in Tamil and Sanskrit. He was father of Tamil prose. And second is Hendrik. Hendrik introduced the printing and Tamil. He was called father of printing press. You can see the Santom Church here. What are the other Portuguese presence impact? There was a clash between the Portuguese and the Muslims over pearl fishing. And pearl fishing, in the territories region called Kochi, uh, the Paravas complained to Portuguese about the atrocities of Arab. So this opportunity, the Portuguese seized this opportunity and sent the priest padres to convert many fishers to Catholic. Saint Francis Xavier, when arrived at Goa in 1542, he traveled to Thoothukudi and Punnakayam and converted many fishes to the religion. And also there was a Karta system because the Portuguese disrupted the trade of using violence, um, um, and then the local merchants um, will reach the Portuguese people uh, to protection. So by using this opportunity, they exacted the money from the traders for the protection. The system is called Kartas. And then the Dutch. Then the next two slides talks about the Dutch, the Amana massacre, and the Dutch in Tamil Nadu. So the first expedition made by the Dutch is Jan Huygen, merchant from Netherlands. They formed the Dutch East Indian Company in 1602. They hold the territory at Indonesia for spice, and also they captured Malacca from Portuguese in 1641. There was a famous massacre. It was called Amina massacre, held in 1623. What is the um, massacre is like? There's 27 English East India Company persons and the Portuguese Japan were tortured in a land in Amban Island in Indonesia by the Dutch. It is called Amina massacre, and the Dutch in Tamil Nadu. Mainly they concentrated on Pulicat and Masulipatnam. Uh, uh, the the they captured the Pulicat from Portuguese and built a castle Gelria there. In the Pulicat, they established settlement only at 1610. The Dutch also controlled Masulipatam in 1605. Other forts is Nagapattinam, Ponnakkayal, Portonova, Kadalur, Devanampattinam. The less known fact about the Dutch is slave trade. They involved in the slaves trade. Um, Also, they made Pulicat as a Coromandel headquarters to export diamonds, nutmeg, cloves, and maize. And also, the Pulicat was also made as a gunpowder factory. You can see the Dutch cemetery in Pulicat in here in this picture. From this French, we are gonna see in the second video. Um, so, from this first part, you can answer the second question. The Portuguese sailor who reached Calicut in 1498 was Vasco da Gama. For this question, we'll see in the second part. Um, if you know the answer for this first question, to find the name of the ruler who gave Pondicherry to French, you can comment over in the below comment section. And if you have any queries or if you have any doubts, you can also comment in the comment section. Thank you.